This Shriners Children 500 Betting Picks 2025 edition of the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Edge Boost. Earn up to $750 per month on your sports gambling transactions. Go to edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Rhythm, the leader in data-driven picks and props. Rhythm is giving away a $250 future and throwing a March Madness party. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/party for details.
Drivers, start your engine!
Strap in and pull those belts up tight as the Sports Gambling Podcast Network presents the NASCAR Gambling Podcast.
I'm just gonna put my foot on the floor and I'm not lifting till I see God or a checkered flag.
My man.
With all the news and the best bets for your NASCAR weekend.
We want to thank you tonight for these mighty machines that you brought before us. Thank you for the Dodges and the Toyotas. Thank you for the Fords. Lord, I want to thank you for my smoking hot wife tonight, Lisa. In Jesus' name, boogity, boogity, boogity.
Now, here are your hosts, Rod Villagomez and Cody Zeeb.
Boogity, 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 indeed. It is the NASCAR Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He's Cody Zeeb. I'm Rod Villagomez. Cody, we are putting away all of the super speedway nonsense. We're putting away all the road course nonsense. We're getting back to, we're at short flat track this week. Jesus Christ, Cody, the hits just keep on coming, bud.
Oh, gotta love it. First of all, that intro fires me up every time. Let's fucking go. Super excited. First, true traditional oval, I guess, of the season. Daytona obviously is traditional, but doesn't race that way, right? This is the first kind of oval where we're really going to see some stuff for this season and really excited for it. We told you the real betting season started last week, Rod. It fucking started last week. Let's go. We had a hell of a week. Ready to do it again this week at Phoenix.
Although not as if we haven't seen any real stuff already this season. What a race we had in COTA, probably. And look, hands down, probably one of the better road course races I think we've seen. The fact that they lopped off the toe on that shoe, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think the new layout was perfect. I think that we saw a really, really good race. It had all the different elements of, you saw some guys kind of run away with things at points. You had some good racing, really good battles. The passing seemed to be good. You didn't have to dump people to pass them. We saw some very clean racing, especially there at the end. And it was really excited. And Rod, if they have fixed the road course racing on this car, we've already seen them get a lot better at the short track racing, which I think we're going to see again this weekend on this car. Those were the two problems, right? This car is delivered on the intermediate tracks. This car is delivered on these super speedways as far as how it races and everything. Now, if you fix the other two, oh boy, watch out. It's going to be a really great season, and I'm pumped for it.
Yeah, and what I was most impressed with, too, overall, was there was not a lot of, short of maybe the very first turn when Ross Chastain decided to end it. I think after that, everybody decided that that's not the way they wanted this race to shape out. And we had a lot of good, clean passes. Now, was there some beating and banging? Yeah, absolutely. But that comes to be expected with not just short track racing, but, especially with the way COTA lays out, even with the taking away of some of the track, it still lends itself to the type of racing where you're going to have to put yourself in there. You're going to have to start to move some folks. But overall, Cody,
you probably don't need to try and win it in the first turn, Ross Chastain. But in these stock cars on these road courses, you're going to get the beating and the banging. And we saw a healthy amount, but it wasn't ridiculous. We've seen some races where it's just gotten to be ridiculous. And it's like, come on, guy. But no, this weekend, I don't think there was much to be upset about. And when I saw the Gluck poll, I didn't look at the final results, but I think it was at 87, 88%. So it was doing really well, seemed to trend well. COTA contract is up, so we'll see if they renew it, I guess. But I think that they probably will, and that's a good race to have early in the season. And yeah, I think it played out well.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the Gluck poll for a second, it was like 85-12, and I thought, oh, okay, there's probably like a couple thousand. Well, it was 17,000 votes deep, and that was the ratio.
He gets the votes on that thing. Yeah, he there's some pretty good turnout, so it really gives you a good feel of how people feel about it.
Indeed. All right. Well, listen, we're going to start talking about the Phoenix race coming up on the weekend. But first, I want to tell you to gear up now for March with Merch Madness. It is March. This is our first episode of March. So happy March, by the way. You get promo code Madness for 20% off in the SGPN store. You can get in now before the promo code is done. Love, love, love my Racing Gambling Podcast coffee mug, because it means not only does it wake me up in the morning, but it reminds me of what an amazing show we are putting on day after day after day. So thank you very much for that. Get your own by using code Madness in our merch store right now. You get 20% off of that in the SGPN store. Justin checking in, so close to the Rowdy win, but Bell Live -120. Hey, that was the bet. So
yeah.
Jessica saying good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Jessica.
Matt checking in saying yo. JDK saying let's go. Everybody in the chat today does Flacco's. Cheers, boys. Leon's Automotive. Ooh, howdy, y'all from Arizona. Ooh, are you going to
the race this weekend, Leon's? Hopefully.
I hope so.
I mean, just because you're in Arizona doesn't mean you're close to the track, I guess. But
and that's like people from anybody saying, "Hey, Rod, are you going to go to Disneyland this weekend?" And no, I'm not driving 8 hours.
You live in California, Rod. Isn't it close? But
yeah, no, 8 hours is. I mean, it's close, I guess, but like it's not like a weekend trip where I just go, "Hey, look," because you got to spend 4 days in Disneyland. It's just ridiculous.
There you go. Yeah. So we'll just kick it off right here. JDK was wondering about tires this week, and Leon's Automotive checking in and pretty much filling them in. We're running option tires this weekend, similar to the Richmond set. That's the deal. So they are going to run the option tires. I think that they're testing this out to see if it could be in play for the championship race, obviously here at Phoenix later on the season. So yeah, it's going to be just like Richmond last year, just like the All-Star race in North Wilkesboro. 6 sets of primary tires, 2 sets of the option tire. And so we're going to see a lot of strategy this week. And that seems to be something that's helped push this car in particular, this 7th generation Cup Series car, to be even better on these shorter tracks. And it really does mix up the strategy. I mean, that Richmond race last year, we saw a Daniel Suarez led like 50, 100 laps, something like that, almost out of nowhere, because they just rolled the dice at a certain time, and it panned off to put them in front of the field for a while. So yeah, we're in for some exciting stuff like that this week.
Well, and not to mention, if you watch the IndyCar race, that was all about tires. Palou won because of his tire strategy. So when you start to make calls like that, and that's what we were saying too when we were talking about just adding another wrinkle into NASCAR in general. And when you have these guys who are at the highest level of NASCAR now having to think about, ooh, do I bring this soft compound out that's only going to last us 30 laps? How much track position will that really gain us? And can we put them on late enough to make a nice charge and hold off the rest of the field? So those are the types of strategy decisions that I love that we're bringing into this sport, because, you know, so many people complained for so long, man, it's so boring. Everybody comes in the same pit strategy, and you get tires, you get gas, and you get out, and there's not a lot of passing and blah, blah, blah. Well, now this shakes it all up, and it makes you think about, do I come in before the rest of the field? When do I pit? How do I pit? So having to explain that in our IndyCar Discord channel, I was like, yeah, you're not going to see the same everybody just come in at once. It's going to be all over the place. So anxious to see how that plays out this week too.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely throws in that extra wrinkle, like you said, and I think that does help keep it exciting. So love it.
I love it as well. All right. Well, it is Phoenix. It is the flat, short track that we know and we love. It's the Shriners Children 500, not 400, like there are some out there that say it is the 500, which means that there are that many laps around this track. But yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm super excited for this one to finally play out, because we've been at this for a little while, watching super speedway races and just wreckage all over the place. So I want to see some cars finish some races for a change.
Yeah, exactly. I think it, yeah, I mean, like we kind of mentioned, first traditional normal oval of the season, and we're looking forward to that. Super speedways are always fun, and always exciting racing. The road course was a lot of fun and good, but now we really get into the meat of the schedule over the next few weeks here.
Indeed. All right. Well, then I guess with no further ado, other than to step away once real quick, we'll start breaking down this Phoenix race, shall we? So let's tell you first about our friends over at Edge Boost. SGPN has partnered up with Edge Boost, the premier Visa debit card for bettors. An Edge Boost card allows you to avoid the hassle of having your card denied at the sportsbook, DFS site, sweepstakes site, racetrack, casino, whatever, wherever they're trying to deny you. Edge Boost does not allow that to happen. Plus, you can earn up to $750 per month in cashback rewards for using your Edge Boost card. And you know your money's safe. The card is FDIC insured. And the best part of it all is it's no credit check and it is completely free. You can sign up today. Use promo code SGPN so you can get better cash back rewards and instant tier 2 status. I'll tell you my Edge Boost play of the day later on in the show, so keep your eyes open for that. That's edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. That's edgeboost.bet, promo code SGPN. We're brought to you by mybookie.ag. MyBookie is your place to bet every sport. Plus, props for every game and the live dealer casino. You're watching Sean play some blackjack on his casino, Sean Green from the main show. That's a lot of fun watching him play blackjack. So you can do that too as well. MyBookie accepts customers from a ton of locations. Easy deposit, lightning fast payouts using crypto. Head to mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN for a 100% deposit match up to $1,000 plus a $10 casino chip. That's mybookie.ag, promo code SGPN. Yes, sir. Have you watched Sean play blackjack on his site?
I haven't watched it. I listened to the podcast version, which I think maybe even adds another element to it because then you can't see what they're doing. But those guys really, I mean, they could talk about anything. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, I'm not really a blackjack guy or anything like that, but they make it exciting, which is it's just very entertaining show. So yeah, make sure you check out the flagship, the Sports Gambling Podcast show itself.
Please do that. All right, it is time for the Shriners Children's 500. We are set for 312 laps around this 1 mile paved track for 312 miles. Now, granted, it's called the Shriners Children 500, but it's only 312 miles. So
it's like 500 kilometers, isn't it? I think it does.
That's what it is. It's 500 kilometers. 3.12 is the 5K. So you multiply that by out, but it's the Shriners Children's 500 kilometers for those of you out there who celebrate as JDK. I know you do as well. But yeah, we're set for 312 miles, 500 kilometers around this track. Short flat, Cody, it's one of your favorites to pay attention to, and it's some of these drivers' favorite because obviously we know that this big track kind of lends itself to having 6 or 7 lanes by the time it's all said and done.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that they changed around that dog leg and which side of the track it's on, you're going to see them, especially on the restarts, on the initial starts, fan out and just go absolutely crazy on that course, which is always a lot of fun. And yeah, short flats, I feel like we've lost the advantage, or I don't want to say advantage, but we've lost something that we had previously where there were short flat guys that were kind of a secret. You could pick on them and get them at these races. You got good odds every time. And that's kind of gone away, which is a bit sad. You know, Eric Almirola retired, although I believe he's in the Xfinity Series race this week, Rod. So I might be talking about him tomorrow if that's the case, because that was exciting. Chase Briscoe was always a really fun one. SHR Equipment was always slept on. Now he's one of the favorites, and I think he's going to have a great day. I wanted to bet on him, but where he's priced at, it's hard to pull the trigger. Christopher Bell, by the way, 2 wins in the first 3 races. Shout out to him. He's the best probably right now on them, but that makes him a massive favorite. Makes it tougher to get in on. So, yeah, it does. The short flat thing has shifted, I guess, over the last season or 2 here in a bit of a sad direction. But that being said, Rod, still plenty of good things to bet on.
Well, I feel like as more of these types of tracks get introduced, obviously the road course thing went away, right? Where we saw the road course ringers back in the day. We still see some road course dominant drivers, but by and large, most of the field's kind of caught up with everybody. And now that they get more practice on it, everybody is I don't want to say leveling out, but there's a lot more leveling out than there was before. So obviously you've still got the guys that'll rise to the top, but And as for Christopher Bell, I know so many people. Oh my God, I've seen everybody out there saying Bell's going to win 3 in a row. And okay, I understand the hype, and I can see it, especially the track that we're going to right now. But God, it is so difficult to win 2 in a row, let alone 3 in a row in this sport. Come on now.
Yeah, I think so. A couple of things on that, just to touch on him, because he's not made either of our cards today. He's only plus 400 a lot of places to win, plus 450. Christopher Bell is going to be really good this weekend. He's going to be fast. If he comes out and wins this race, it's not going to surprise either of us. It didn't surprise us last week. Atlanta, I would say, a little more surprising, but he did it, right? Winning 3 races a row in the Cup Series this day and age is extremely hard. Doing it on 3 different tracks, extremely hard as well. And some people, a couple of different places I saw, like, oh, Christopher Bell, is he the best driver in the Cup Series right now? Okay, people. We've had 2 super speedways in a road course. Everybody pump the brakes, calm down. Let's not overreact. This is one of those deals where this is a marathon, not a sprint, right? And yes, Christopher Bell is off to an amazing start. Congrats to him. He is actually locked in now to the playoffs, Rod, because 2 wins will do that for you. And it's great. It's on different styles of tracks. He's been in competition. Great. But that's not the meat and potatoes of the schedule. Is sure, there's 12 races between super speedways and road courses now, but yeah, let's not crown him just yet, Rod. That being said, he's going to be really good this weekend. And I know, like, our guy Justin did get the boost on him that put him to 8-1. Okay, now we're talking, right? I could definitely be a lot more interested in a number like that, certainly. But JDK was making a good point in the Discord, like, just winning 3 races in a row, that in and of itself should make his odds more because of how hard that is to do. But coming to one of his best styles of tracks, so should be interesting for sure.
And let's not get it twisted either, because I know there's a lot of people like, well, if that were any other driver, you'd be, clamoring for him and saying he's the best ever. No, because we don't do that. Like, I have nothing against him. And to me, I'm glad for him. And look, he wanted to leave nothing to the imagination. He was like, I'm going to lock myself in now. That way it doesn't come down to a decision later on in the season that can keep me out of the Final Four. So he wanted to take care of it. And I mean, good for him, right? Again, we'll see how this goes through the course of the season. We've seen guys like William Byron jump out to hot starts before and just sort of cool off. So we have to wait and see.
And something that could be really interesting, and there's not really any way for us to know this. And Christopher Bell, William Byron, could they just throw something completely different at Phoenix this weekend? Because Bell's locked in, Byron is almost locked in. Let's not forget this is the championship race in the fall, coming back to this track. And so Penske, and we're going to talk a lot about Penske today, but Penske has owned and dominated this track in particular. Obviously, they've won 3 championships in a row because of this track specifically. But, do they gamble with Hendrick is going to likely have a car in the Final Four. Gibbs likely going to have a car in the Final Four. If not 2, 3, 4, I mean, they all could, right? So could they be taking their time this week to use those 2 cars that don't need to win? I get these guys want to win every week and all that, but to try some things out, I wouldn't be overly shocked by that either. It would suck to bet on Bell at 4-1, and then he comes out and he's, tried something and they're just out in left field because it didn't work. But hey, now they know and they got the data and feedback or whatever. So just, I guess, something to think about as we go into this.
I mean, you're in the best position possible for Christopher Bell because now you don't have to sweat it. Like you said, you don't have to sweat this race. You can go out and try to run as best you can. But if there's a setup you want to try for the fall to see if it's even and then hell, if you even win, then you know that you're pretty much going to be fast in the fall part of it. So yeah, I mean, I get it. It could go either way. So while we appreciate what Bell has done and we applaud him for his success, we also realize that winning 3 in a row is not easy.
I mean, I have a ticket on his over-win total, which is looking great. He's got 2 of the first 3, so feel great about that. I think it's going to be a wonderful season for Bell. I think that's going to continue. Again, a lot of the betting stuff just comes down to numbers. Would I bet Briscoe this week if he was SHR numbers? Absolutely. Am I going to bet him where he's at this week in JGR? No. If we see it from him and we see it from him, great. Again, when it comes to betting, a lot of it comes down to the number side of things, and that's really where it's at.
I concur. Just wanted to address something in the chat really quick. Jessica checking and said, Rod, haven't seen the Blues Clues shirt in a while. You didn't see me yesterday. I wore it yesterday.
Well, there wasn't a show yesterday, Rod. What did you do? Why would you wear it not on the show?
I will tell you right now, I base my wardrobe based on what I have. I go back through the YouTube videos and I watch and make sure that I haven't worn something with, because I only have a limited wardrobe, folks. I don't have a ton of clothes, especially in the wintertime. I kind of cycle through hoodies. So I have to go back and go, okay, I wore this hoodie 2 weeks ago. Okay, it's safe to wear it now. So if you haven't seen a wardrobe in a while, it's because I've made sure that I've gone through and did it. And that Blues Clues one, that's retired. I'm just saying. You'll never
retired. Wow. I thought that was a fan favorite. I know you wore Brawny Man recently again, and that's always an exciting looking one. But I think Blues Clues should come out of retirement, Rod.
Okay, fine. Maybe just for you guys. Boji Joe says, doesn't your wife lay out your clothes for you in the morning? Not in the morning. She will help pack me as I'm leaving for all of my drills, though. And that way I make sure I don't forget anything. Because, I mean, listen, as you start getting up older in age, you got to have somebody doing that stuff for you. So, but maybe I'll bring Blues Clues out of retirement for all of you guys. And if you don't know what we're talking about, if you're listening on the podcast going, Blues Clues, what the hell is he talking about? Well, I do have a sweater that looks like one of the guys from Blues Clues.
Steve from Blues Clues.
It's not Steve. It was one of the newer guys. It was the newest guy.
Whatever. Steve's the only Blues Clues guy, in my opinion.
That counts, right?
The other ones don't account.
Speaking of clues, we're going to leave you some clues to win some money this weekend in Phoenix. So, Cody, I feel like it's time to start giving out some picks.
Let's start it off, Rod. I did want to mention on the entry list, not really a bunch to talk about week to week because the 36 are the 36 this year. We don't have the rotating in and out guys or anything like that. But Catherine Legge is going to make her first career Cup Series start. If you don't know her, she's from England, I think, somewhere across overseas. But she's done IndyCar. She was in the Indy 500 last year. IMSA, a lot of sports car racing. Been around, I think she's 44 or so. So she'll be making her first career Cup Series start. She was in the ARCA race at Daytona a couple weeks ago to kind of qualify her into being eligible to drive this weekend. She's going to be in the 78 car for BJ McLeod. It's not a great car. There's not really going to probably be any way to get in on her betting-wise, fantasy-wise. But first female to start a Cup Series race in 9 years since Danica Patrick did so. And again, as girl dads as we both are, we always love to see that. And it'll be exciting to be like, hey, look, there's a woman driving that car. So great to see for her, Rod. All right, let's get down to business. I'm going to kick it off with a couple of head-to-heads that I like. Chris Buescher over Brad Keselowski. This is minus 120 over on Caesars. Not really sure why this is a head-to-head, if we're going to be honest, Rod. I get that they're in similar cars, and I get that over the years we kind of had the joke since Brad went over there, like these two cars always run pretty close to each other, and that is true, but Chris Buescher is clearly the better of the two drivers, right? I don't think that at this point in time, career-wise, that's a different conversation maybe, but where they're at right now in their careers, Chris is the lead guy over there. So much the lead guy that they've raced against each other 6 times at Phoenix in the next-gen car. Chris Buescher is 6 for 6, beating Brad Keselowski. That makes it pretty simple for me. I mean, you got to take Chris Buescher in this at minus 120. You go back to the fall, 9th place for Buescher, 15th for Brad. Last spring, they were both really good here, 2nd and 4th place. But again, Buescher on the good side, 5th and 15th in the fall of 23, 15th and 18th. So some pretty close finishes to each other, right? 21st by Chris Buescher. Oh, no. Well, Brad Keselowski finished 35th in that one. 10th place back in the spring of 22 and 23rd for Brad. So 6 for 6 beating Brad head-to-head at this track. So give me Chris Buescher, rather, over Brad Keselowski. More thoughts on Buescher coming up here in a little bit from both of us, actually, Rod. So put a pin in him. We'll come back to it. And then give me Chase Elliott over Denny Hamlin, minus 115. You can kind of split the hairs on the stats. It's pretty even. They've only raced against each other 5 times in the next-gen car on this track because Elliott did miss one of them. But it's close. You could make the good, strong case either way. My case is the case that I've been making all offseason. Very big on Chase Elliott. We saw last year, Mr. Reliable. He's going to be in the mix. You saw it last week. He got punted on the first lap of the race. They had to change the tow link, all this stuff, and ends up 5th place at the end of the day. Made the right call on tires at the end, gets in those extra spots. Oh, had to sweat the fuck out of that top 5 bet, but he cashed it. We had so many bets last week that were sweats to the very end. Last lap, Busch, or was it Gillen getting inside the top 10? I know a bunch of guys had that. They also won one of the group bets with that. Just, yeah, it was very exciting. But Elliott gets up there, has a good finish. Denny Hamlin, and just back on the Elliott thing too. Think back to the clash at Bowman Gray, right? This track obviously is 4 times bigger, although they're both short, flat tracks. But I think that, again, grain of salt, a little bit you could take away. But the one time we've been on a short track so far this season, Elliott dominated that event in that race and looked really good in that. So I like that. I'm big on Elliott this season. I think that this is kind of the comeback season after the injury a couple of years ago. And Hamlin, that crew chief change, this is the first race where we're really going to see that come into play, right? It's not really, I mean, I could call strategy at Daytona and Atlanta, and Coda is Coda. And he got damaged on the first lap. Like, you didn't really get to see anything. This is the first week of the year where you're going to get to start to see that relationship. I think there's going to be some kinks in that, some bumps in the road maybe. It'll be fine going on farther down the road. But so more just a gut play from me, but give me Chase Elliott over Denny Hamlin at -115.
Hey, after last week, I trust the hell out of your gut. So I'm definitely on anything that your gut says to play. And I like both of these plays so much so that I am going to, this is where I officially try to get back on the Gibbs good side of all the Gibbs fans, because I have already said that the junior jinx has started to become a thing. I'm Ty Gibbs.
That's another overreaction, Rod. All these people, we're 3 races into the season. Jimmy Johnson's better than Ty Gibbs in the point standings. And it's like, all right, again, marathon, not a sprint. Everybody, I saw this guy made this big long post on Facebook, and he's like, I've just come to the realization that Ty Gibbs is not talented and he's never going to be great. He's just always going to be average. And I'm like, because of 2 super speedways in a road course? Dude.
Well, I mean, I got a bunch of last season to back it up. But at the same time, I will also say that maybe the junior jinx is not going to be a gigantic torpedo for Ty Gibbs. So I will say this. Cody just made a brilliant point for Chris Buescher to be a top, or at least a good car this year. So this year in Phoenix. So I'm going to put him inside of the top 10. Okay. That's not a hard thing to do. Especially just when you look at Chris Buescher overall. He is 9th in green flag speed last year in Phoenix 1. If you look at him, he is just inside of he's way inside of the top 10 as far as average finishes. Of course, our friends over at iFantasy Race providing all of these stats for us, but average finish of 10.3 puts him 4th on the list overall in terms of finishes when it comes to the Phoenix track. So, I mean, you know, he's going to be a top 10 car. He's going to be flirting around the top 10. I've seen it out of him this year. I tried to dog, or I didn't really try to dog, but I tried to underplay RFK's dominance this year. But it's not happening. So I will put him in the top 10, and I will throw Ty Gibbs in the top 10 as well. He does have a 3rd place finish here from the past. So it's possible for him to do it. You put these two together, it's plus 260 over on Caesars. They've got the already both to make situation going on over there. But for me, it's just a matter of if Buescher's going to be in the top 10. We already know that. Ty Gibbs has done it once. This is his opportunity to try to rise above what's happened over the first 2 races of the season, because if anybody desperately needs it, it's Ty Gibbs, because he has certainly not looked good to start the year. That 54 team right now is the weakest JGR car in the garage, right? And that's with Chase Briscoe adding himself in the mix, because Chase Briscoe has been in the mix. Well, I'm just saying right now
from the first 3 races.
But we're still talking about momentum, and we're still talking about.
If you look at the point standings, Chase Briscoe is a long ways behind everybody.
Well, that is true too. But but I mean, the fact that he does have at least one top 10 in his career, and that did come last spring. And we didn't really touch on this either, but the spring race obviously factors in. You have to look at the spring race, because the fall race, obviously it's the championship race. And most of the time, the people that are finishing at the front are the championship 4. So you got to have to look at the spring race versus the spring race, because if you look at the fall race numbers, then you're kind of judging it on a different scale. And so for me, like I said, the fall race, he actually did finish or start 6th and crashed out and finished 40th. So there was some speed in that 54 car then. But Yeah, so give me Briscoe, Briscoe. Give me Buescher and Gibbs, both inside of the top 10 at plus 260 over on Caesars.
Yeah, that's a great point on looking at the spring and the fall. You certainly can, especially with some guys. Tyler Reddick has been really, really good here in the spring race, not good here in the fall race. He's also not made the Final Four in any of those fall races. Did he make it this past season? He did, but they didn't do well then either, so maybe it is just a fall thing. But prior to that, is he just checked out and ready to go on vacation? Could be hard. So if there's anybody you notice is better in the spring than in the fall, there definitely is something to that in this race more so than anywhere else. There's other places where that comes into play, Darlington, where you've got 500 miles compared to 400 or some other things, temperature and stuff like that. But in this race more than any other, because of everything that's on the line in the fall race, you certainly should take that into account in some situations.
Indeed. All right, we will come back with more picks, but I would like to take this opportunity to tell you about Rhythm. Rhythm is throwing an epic March Madness party, and you are invited. All Rhythm users are invited to a first 4 watch party Wednesday, March the 19th at the awesome Stadium Swim at Circa in Las Vegas. Free drinks, plus you get to hang out with the guys from the Sports Gambling Podcast and the college experience. Who doesn't want a little Picks Dundee in their life? So go hang out with Colby and Ryan and Sean over there at the fun Circa Las Vegas. And it gets better. Rhythm is also giving away a $250 March Madness future with one lucky random winner and random Rhythm user. Even if you can't make it to the party, you can still win the future bet. Sign up today for your 7-day free trial at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. Come by and use Rhythm to help you fill out your bracket and make some bets while you are there. A free party plus a chance at a $250 future bet. You bet. Go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/party for details. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/PARTY. Happy to continue to be brought to you by Underdog, NBA, NHL, college basketball, whatever sport you can cash in big with Underdog Fantasy Pick'em. Underdog is offering a this guy discount for every Lakers game for the rest of the regular season. And for those of you who are asking, I'm not ever going to learn how to pronounce it properly because it's part of the shtick now. Like I tripped over it once, I'm going to trip over it every time. So also for football diehards, pick 'em projections for selecting players' 40-yard dash times this week during the NFL Combine. Definitely love using Underdog. We'll give you some of our Underdog plays later on in the week for this race. In the meantime, sign up with our promo code RACESGPN to claim that special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus credits. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code RACESGPN.
We're going to have our Underdog show later in the week, of course, Rod, when we talk fantasy. But make sure you're following us on social, too. I gave out a 6-pick Underdog slip on Saturday. 6 for 6, 52 times my entry I won. Sunday, Rod, I gave out, I was feeling good, right? And we're going to roll some of that money back into it. I gave out 8 picks on Underdog Fantasy. 7 of those picks hit, and the one that didn't, Shane Van Gisbergen finished in 6th, and I had him at 5.5 better than. I missed out on an 8-pick, 120 times my entry by the hook, half a finishing position. But it was fun, and being that close is always exciting. And of course, hitting on Saturday, I was playing with free money anyways. So yeah, make sure you're following us for all those picks, because Underdog Fantasy is a ton of fun.
It's a ton of fun, and it's more fun because, to me, like I said, you're just playing against yourself. Like, you're not sweating anything other than yourself, and you're just having a good time making the picks. And it's not really difficult. It's the higher than or lower than. Are they going to finish better than or worse than,
Yeah, exactly. And, the non-legal betting states, or states like this one, like in my state here in Nebraska, I have to go to the casino to place my bets, or I got to drive all the way to Iowa, go across the border, place on my phone. But Underdog, being a fantasy game, it is legal here. And so Sunday morning, if I wake up and I'm like, I really like these guys, you can put them all in a lineup. And another good way to get in on the action if you're not able to go wherever to place the bets or however that goes. So.
Yes, sir. All right. Speaking of which, let's pull up more of our betting card and start dishing out some more picks.
Rod, I would say let's get in on this one early in the week. Do not wait. Ryan Blaney, top 5, minus 110 over on Bet365. I would be surprised if at the end of the day on Tuesday this is still there. in 6 starts in the next gen car at Phoenix. Do you know how many times Ryan Blaney has finished inside of the top 5?
All of them. All of them.
Every single one. 6 for 6, finishing inside of the top 5 at Phoenix in the next gen era. He is really good here. 4 of those are second place finishes, by the way. Hasn't won in any of them, which is an interesting stat that we might talk about more later. But 4 times in second place, 6 for 6 inside of the top 6. And if you go past the next gen era, 7 in a row inside of the top 5 over the last 7 races, and 9 of the last 12 races at Phoenix. So old car, new car, doesn't matter. Remember Kevin Harvick, top 10, top 5 bets at Phoenix? I think top 10s he had 17, 18 in a row, something crazy. Well, Ryan Blaney's starting to get there with top 5s. Hard to bet him top 10 because of his number, but you don't need to. He's inside the top 5 every single time. We know how good Penske's been on this track. We know how good Ford's been on this track. And Blaney has been really, really good here. Don't overthink it. Blaney top 5, minus 110.
I will back you on that one and go even farther later on in this episode. But yeah, it's staggering to look at that type of finish from a guy who hasn't won, but man, he is consistent as all get out. And we've always preached consistency anyways. And sometimes the more consistent guys get overlooked because it's so damn boring to be that consistent. But I mean, it's profitable. So yeah, definitely hammer this one now before it gets to minus 140, minus 150 or wherever it's going to end up, because God knows it's going to be somewhere in that area. All right. I am going to go with a head-to-head for me, but it's going to be a manufacturer head-to-head, and that is going to be Chevy over Toyota in the next-gen era. In this particular spring race, Toyota has only finished better than Chevy in one of those, and that happened to be last year, and that was Christopher Bell, which we all know. But before that, it was the Chevy of William Byron that finished better than everybody, so it didn't matter. And then it was the Chevy of Ross Chastain with the next best Toyota at Kurt Busch in 5th place in 2022. So 1 for 3 or Toyota's actually 1 for 3 in beating Chevy. So I like the odds on that one. And then again, if you just take a look, at where everybody's been started, Chevy has so many of these cars in the top 10 when they roll out. I was trying to look at a Chevy, how many Chevys are starting in the top 10 bet, and they gave us 4.5, and I thought that was intriguing, but they just nuked the under at like minus 180. But they've had 4 or 5 Chevys starting inside of the top 10 over the last few seasons, and to me that's just telling on where the Chevys are. And then of course Fords, you just said it earlier, Penske completely having their thumbprint on this one, a la Blaney. Logano's actually kind of had his fair share of success on this one as well. Chase Briscoe with SHR equipment. And then you talked about with Chris Buescher finishing second in the spring race of last year, with Kozlowski not far behind and Blaney up in the mix as well. So, I mean, Chevys and Fords have been all over this place, and Toyotas, I mean, other than last year with Christopher Bell and Ty Gibbs finishing in the top 10 and Martin Truex Jr., and Tyler Reddick, that was sort of an anomaly. That was kind of an out there thing for it. So for me, I'm taking the 2 out of 3, and I'm rolling with Chevy over Toyota, because if you look, I mean, Ford over Toyota is nuked, and then Chevy over Ford is nuked, and it's hard to take either one of those. So for me, yeah, definitely give me Chevy over Toyota at minus 115.
Yeah, Christopher Bell obviously comes to mind immediately, but outside of him, I don't know, when you think about the Chevy camp and how high they are at the top. I'm going to talk about Ty Gibbs a little bit. Denny Hamlin, I already kind of talked against. Chase Briscoe, TBD, right? I think that this is really a week to show us what he can do for sure. But outside of that, you just got a lot more Chevys at the top than you do Toyotas. So hard to argue too much with that. Next up, I'm going to continue on in the Penske camp. Joey, wait a minute. That's Austin Cindric. That's right. Austin Cindric, top 10, plus 350. Top finishing Ford, 22-1. Oh, I don't know if I'm all in on this Austin Cindric bandwagon, but we're about to find out this weekend, Rod. Penske has been extremely, extremely good at this track. Now, that's namely been in Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano, of course, but Cindric has definitely picked up on some stuff. We're in this is his 4th season in the Cup Series. We're past that 100 start mark. this is time for Austin Cindric to start putting or start getting talked about being replaced in that number 2 car. This is the season that's probably going to make or break Austin Cindric, especially with his dad kind of stepping back at the top of Penske, all that stuff. But I think that Cindric can do it, and I think that this track type in particular that's been good for Penske, that's been good for Ford, is a great place for him to do it. It's been up and down at Phoenix for Cindric in his starts in this next-gen car here. 24th in his first start. He did have an 11th place finish in his second career start here at Phoenix, so you like to see that. But then 25th, 35th, 36th, not good finishes, but 13th place here in the fall, so definitely an improvement there. 4th place at Martinsville back in the fall as well. Had that win at Gateway. Gateway is somewhat of a comp track for this, shorter, flatter track for sure. This is just me betting on Austin Cindric showing up and being who Austin Cindric should be, who we've seen him be in the Xfinity Series at a track that's very strong for his team, for his cars. You know, you're also putting Barry in the mix there now in the quote-unquote Penske camp at Wood Brothers. Short, flat guy. Does that kind of push him a little more too? I think it possibly does. So I really like Cindric at this plus 350 number for a top 10. The top Ford, look, Ryan Blaney's likely going to be in the top 5. We already talked about that. But what if something happens to Ryan Blaney? He gets in a wreck. He loses a tire like Larson did last. I mean, things that are out of your control can go wrong. If that happens, you're concerned about Joey Logano, certainly. And I just couldn't find a way to bet on Joey. And again, it's odd year Joey, so who knows? But let's say odd year Joey strikes, right? Chris Buescher, we're going to talk about him in a minute. And spoiler, I'm going to be covered on him in the top Ford market too, so I'm not worried about it. After that, it really opens up. You've got the front row guys who are all capable. You've got Brad, but it's pretty open past that. So Blaney has an issue. Joey has an issue. We're already covered with Chris. You know, Cindric at 22-1 for the top finishing Ford. I think that there's a good market there for something to happen, especially if he's inside the top 10 at the end of the day. So give me those on him. And then my other top 10 bet, Michael McDowell, 10-1 over at his first normal oval track, I guess, in Spire Equipment. He's gone to Spire. They put all this money in. Their win total as a team was set at 1.5, Rod. High expectations for this team. Okay, fine. We've got these high expectations. I'm not completely sold on that, but let's see it. What can you do? Show me what you've got. And McDowell has been pretty good here. 31st place finish in the fall. He was on his way out at Ford. He was on his way out of front row. Maybe we're already looking at the next chapter, whatever. Previous to that, an 8th, a 9th, and a 13th place finish in the last 3 races here at Phoenix. So he's been good at this track in general. Now, that was with front row in a Ford. Still think the front row cars are better, but this is their chance to show us. And a 10-1, I think the number is right for a guy that's in what should be a good situation and has done it 2 of the last 3 races and been close in 3 of the last 4. So, give me Michael McDowell top 10 at 10-1.
Love it. Because again, I'm just done questioning your gut. You have cashed some pretty big tickets this week or this season already. So I can't say I don't think so, because the second I do that is the second Michael McDowell ends up finishing 5th and like turning everybody into millionaires.
Don't worry, we're not to the Ty Gibbs bet yet. You can push back then, Rod.
Okay, I will try to do exactly that. But I can't necessarily, because it's gonna it may coincide with what I've got going on too. But all right, I'm going to fade another. I'm going to fade a RFK guy to my own detriment, I guess. But really, I'm only going to do it because I'm taking Kyle Busch over Brad Keselowski. I'm a little surprised that Kyle Busch is the underdog in this matchup. It's minus 105. You can find that over on Caesars. But it's considering that the last few seasons for Kyle Busch, or at least last season, was not great at all. In the Phoenix Next Gen Speed Rankings overall, though, Kyle Busch sits in 12th over Brad Keselowski, who sits in 16th. So it doesn't matter where they finish to me. It just, as long as Kyle Busch finishes better than Brad Keselowski. So that's just the Phoenix Next Gen Speed Ranking altogether. If you look at the average finishes here, Kyle Busch sitting in 12th place in average finish overall among the field. Brad Keselowski sitting 19th in that one. I will tell you that the last 3 finishes for Kyle Busch have been horrendous. 21st, 25th, 22nd. I mean, not in that order, but 21st, 22nd, 25th. But before that, 7th, 7th, and 8th. A 7th in the spring of 2022, a 7th in the fall of that year, and then 8th place in the spring of 2023. So while it's been disappointing for Kyle Busch altogether, I feel like now, I don't know if Coda gave him a shot in the arm. I don't know if Coda may have proved to him that he's actually not a bad driver anymore, but and then we saw it too over the last couple of weeks from Daytona and Atlanta. I mean, Kyle Busch is looking kind of revitalized in that 8 car. Now, of course,
contract year.
We said it too at the outset. This is him trying to prove that he belongs in there. And so when you go out there and you crush it at Coda the way you did, now granted you fell back because you used it all up, but you used it all up, right? And you finished the race and you still finished inside of the top 5. So I think that's a good thing for this 8 team to sort of bring to the table for the rest of the season on a track in which he has been relatively successful with some top 10 finishes. Whereas Brad Keselowski, I mean, here's the thing about Brad Keselowski. His last few finishes, like I said, 15th, 4th, 15th, 18th, 35th, 23rd. Yeah, okay, that's not good when you compare it to a 7th, and a 7th, and an 8th. So if you even go back one farther, it's another 7th place finish in there. But yeah, I mean, this to me is Kyle Busch, his season looking up versus Brad Keselowski, who, look, I mean, last week kind of, I just feel like last week and the last couple of weeks have set the tone for Brad Keselowski. It just feels like this may be, I'm retiring him already, Cody. That's where we're at. I'm just retiring him already. But yeah,
here we go again. Rod retiring the old guys.
People think I should be retired at this point. So I kind of agree with them at this point. Hard to sit in this seat for an hour at a time and concentrate. But yeah, give me Kyle Busch over Brad Keselowski at -105.
Yeah, the previous couple of races here finishes scare me a touch, but I mentioned fading Keselowski earlier. It's not really a fade of him, I guess, but just taking Buescher over him. But yeah, I'm all in on Busch this year. We saw it last week. He still has the fire. He's got the drive. They had good cars last year, especially on short tracks. Austin Dillon gets that win at Richmond. Sure, he had to knock everybody out of the way to do it, but before that late caution, he was going to win anyways. Yeah, I do like Busch, and I think the number's good. I saw Busch was over Bowman at like -200 in a head-to-head. I was like, why are we even – it's Tuesday. We have head-to-heads that are -200. Let's pick better head-to-heads maybe. But I digress nonetheless, Rod. I'm going to go to the top Toyota market, market that if you've listened to the show for any period of time, I like because there's just not a lot of Toyotas. And sure, it's gotten bigger over the last couple of years, but I still like the market. I'm going to target 2 guys in here, one of them being Ty Gibbs, 10-1. And sorry, Dos Flacos, no Riley Herbst top 10, but Riley Herbst 100-1. Shout out to our guy Sour D over in the Discord. He sort of talked me into this, and really he's got a good point here. So the thinking on this, Rod, in the 100-1, by the way, for Herbst is over on Bet365 currently. I know he's like 60-1 in some other places. So again, probably place it sooner rather than later. A number that big is going to move probably fairly soon if a few people are betting on it. So the Toyota market, Christopher Bell, heavy favorite in this race. Christopher Bell should probably win this race. He's going to be top 5. He's going to be fast. He's going to look good. What if he blows a brake rotor like he did at Phoenix a couple of years ago when I had a lot of money on him? What if something goes wrong? What if it's a pit penalty? What if he gets caught up in a wreck? What if he's in the wrong place at the wrong time? Things go wrong for these really good drivers with 100-1, especially. That's sort of, you're kind of banking on maybe that happens, right? So something happens with Christopher Bell. Maybe Denny Hamlin in his new crew chief butt heads. Maybe something goes wrong there. Okay, now he's out of the way. Briscoe, I'm still scared of for sure. I think he's probably going to be a top 10 car at the end of the day. But so we're going to just be exposed there, I suppose. Reddick's been hit and miss here. Now, he's been a lot better in the spring, sure, but it's not been consistent. Gibbs, this is the first one I got to. A 10-1 for Ty Gibbs. 3rd place finish here last spring. Now, that wasn't good enough on the day for top Toyota because, of course, Christopher Bell won the race. But the 3rd place finish, led 57 laps. He looked really, really good that day, and I think there's a lot of takeaways from that. He wrecked here in the fall race, so bad result, whatever it happens. He's won the Xfinity Series title here. And don't forget, I know he was in a sophomore slump and had such a bad season. He had 8 top 5 finishes last year. He's very capable of having a good day. We saw a lot of goodness on the short tracks. Bristol, he led a ton of laps. Here he led a bunch of laps. looked good. So I like that from Gibbs. Then continuing down the list, Bubba Wallace, he's not been great at Phoenix. I looked at him. He's been okay, and he's only 22-1. So Eric Jones, John Nemechek, I know you think Legacy's back, Rod, after Daytona and Atlanta. They're not. Not worried about them. But then you get to Riley Herbst in a 2311 car. And obviously, if you're giving me Reddick at a bigger number, he's a lot better than Herbst is, right? If you're giving me Bubba at a bigger number than he's obviously better than. But Riley Herbst was really good here in the Xfinity Series. Now, that was in Ford. That was at SHR. That was in the Xfinity car. He doesn't have any starts in the Cup Series. We have nothing to look at. In the fall race here, he led 167 laps and won the race. Sure, Justin Allgaier won the title on the day, but Riley Herbst dominated the fuck out of that race. He was really good there. 24th place finish prior to that, but before that, 2 fourths in a row, a 7th place, 5 top 4 finishes in the last 8 races in the Xfinity Series. Riley Herbst has been pretty good there. So yeah, I like Riley Herbst to potentially. It's a long shot. You're going to need help. You're going to need some things to happen. But at 100-1, I like that. And then Ty Gibbs, we're not done talking about him yet today, Rod. But I think that this could be where we start to see him come out of his shell. Let's not overreact to 3 bad races on more wild card type of tracks. So yeah, give me those 2 guys to be the top finishing Toyotas.
I like that, obviously Riley Herbst in that 2311 equipment is, if you put anybody at 100-1 in 2311 equipment, I'm really interested because I'm about to make a case for his teammate, Ross Chastain. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Jesus Christ. Why do I keep doing that? I keep putting
Ross Chastain at 2311. Rod's breaking some news.
It's Trackhouse. You know what it is? It's just because maybe I want Ross Chastain in 2311 equipment.
Those 2 teams entered the sport at the same time. There's a lot of links kind of between them. Michael Jordan and Pitbull. I know Pitbull's out now, but they kind of came in at the same time. Big superstars attached to them. They both have had a lot of success. They've got Ross Chastain and Tyler Reddick, 2 young, good drivers. There's a lot of comps, so I get it.
If you're calling for my retirement, this is the time to do so. I'm going to put his not teammate, Ross Chastain, who's in Trackhouse equipment, inside of the top 5. But again, to me, this is similar equipment. I mean, 2311, Trackhouse, they both are the next tier, the high tier B of driving teams. And so for me, Ross Chastain inside of the top 5, plus 190 in FanDuel. I didn't see his top 10 numbers because I put together my stuff early, but I'm sure his top 10 numbers are like minus 130 or minus 140. But if you look at the short track flat total speed rankings from iFantasy Race, you're going to see him in 12th, which is like, well, that's not 5. I get it. But Phoenix NASCAR Next Gen speed rankings from iFantasy Race, Ross Chastain sitting in 6th overall on the list behind Hamlin, Larson, Bell, Byron, and Blaney. And then if you go to his next gen average finishes, courtesy of iFantasy Race, he's 3rd overall in average finish at 9.2. He's got a 2nd place, a 3rd place, a 24th, a 1st, a 6th, and a 19th. So if you're looking at this, he's 3 for 6 in top 5 finishes, 1 just outside of it. But, to me, this is a really good opportunity for Ross Chastain to get back at it. I know I was on him last week at COTA, and he completely dive bombed his way out of that. But yeah, for me, I feel like Ross Chastain is one of those, I don't want to say overlooked drivers, but when you want him to perform very well, he tends to not perform well for you. But I think after COTA, after kind of getting his hand spanked by trying to put that move, he'll probably calm down a little bit and be able to put together a smooth run for this particular race. And like I said, he's been really good at this track over the course of the last few seasons. When you finished inside of the top 3 in 3 of those races and just outside of the top 5 in another one, I mean, two bad races you can kind of toss out as outliers when you look at the whole of his work here overall. So Ross Chastain, top 5, plus 190 over on FanDuel. I really do like that number. Now, are you ready for a long shot top 5 that I want his top 10? So if you can find his top 10, I'd like that one as well. Josh Berry as a top 5 car. I totally get it. I know 1,000% that you think that this is absolutely crazy. However, he does have a top 10 finish here, and he did it in Hendrick equipment, right? He finished 10th in that 9 car. He was in the 4 car for the last couple of seasons. Not very good at that one. 26th and 24th. But it's funny because I think it was JDK, right? It was JDK that brought it up in the Discord and was like, "Hey, Josh Berry looking pretty good." And I had already put together all my research, and I was like, "Okay, I think I'm going to go with Josh Berry." And then I deleted it because Josh Berry top 5 is at plus 440. Josh Berry top 10 plus 175. So I like that one as well. But yeah, so top 5 at plus 440. Okay. And I was like, nah, that's too big. I can't justify that because I was looking at his thing. Berry plus 110 over Gibbs. You and 2, Rod. I don't know if I like that one.
Rod did have a positive things to say about Gibbs earlier, so
I did. You didn't miss it. But this 21 car, right? This 21 car, this Wood Brothers car. Somebody brought it up earlier too in the Discord. This is essentially Penske equipment now. We know. I mean, that's really where I'm hanging my hat on right now. We know Blaney, we know Logano, how good they are on this track. We talked about Cindric just now. So if all those guys are going to be good, then Josh Berry could very well potentially be good in this 21 car this year, driving a little bit better equipment than he was last year, because we know the SHR was not getting the memo for anybody as they were on their way out. So for me, this is more of a long shot play, just for the potential of that 21 car to be just as good as his teammates. And I put that in quotes, but yeah, give me Josh Berry, long shot, top 5 at plus 440. I do really love his top 10. I'll give it out as an official play as well at plus 175.
Stop me if you've heard this before, but just can't get on the Josh Berry train, Ron.
I don't normally either, but I don't know what it was. I was looking at the top 5s and I was looking at stuff going on, and I was like, this is not going to be backed by a whole lot of numbers, but it's just a gut play. Yeah. And for where he sticks out.
If you put it together, I mean, short track guy, right? Grew up in the late model scene. That's where he came up. That's where his strength is. And he's in essentially a Penske car. We've already talked about how much we love Penske. I wish the number was bigger, I guess, is really all I was thinking. But jumping back up to Leon's Automotive saying hometown for McDriver, back to my McDowell top 10 bet. Shows up, gets a good turnout here. I think that's a great point as well. And then Boji Joe was wondering, does Hocevar finish this race? I wanted to bet a Hocevar top 10, but he's only like plus 350. And that's another point on the McDowell top 10 too. Hocevar's plus 350, and McDowell, the more experienced veteran driver, is 10-1 in the same equipment. That's boy, I would love to on Hocevar, but he's getting a lot of respect from the books. So props to them. Riot Cape checking in. How's it going, fellas? All right, Rod, do you have the button ready?
I am more than ready with the button. Give me 5 seconds. It is time for
Worked out so good last week. We're running it back, Rod. The Chris Buescher car lift once again returns. Talked about him earlier in the head-to-head over Brad Keselowski, but top 10 plus 140. Chris Buescher, I've already been really high on RFK this offseason, and I think that it's just going to continue into the season. Chris Buescher is my guy this year. You're getting a guy that's super consistent, plus 140 for a top 10 finish. Love it. You can get him Group C over on Caesars, plus 220 over Keselowski, Berry, and Gibbs. Talked about Keselowski earlier, how he should finish better than him. Just talked about how I don't have a lot of faith in Berry. Now, I do like Gibbs, and I've got more points on him coming up. But, again, I could win either side of this coin. So, plus 220 for the group. I like it. His top 5 is 4-1. Top finishing Ford, 9-1. Again, to the point earlier, maybe Blaney has an issue. I see Buescher as kind of the next best Ford. You can work Joey in there, again, depending on which Joey shows up. Riding the car lift all the way to the top, 25-1 to win this race. Second place here last spring in this race. Chris Buescher is a guy who can win anywhere. He's consistent. He finishes well. And if they're going to keep giving us bad numbers on Chris Buescher, I'm going to continue to hammer him. He cashed a lot of legs of this last week with the top 10, with the group bet. Yeah, love Chris Buescher this week. So give me the Chris Buescher car lift, plus 140 on the top 10. Group C at plus 220. Top 5 at 4-1, top 4 at 9-1, 25-1 to win the race.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? That's the way this works. And if you want to win money, you continue to do the things that win you money. And so far, Chris Buescher has won you a lot of money this week or this season. So definitely can't argue with you on that one. All right. Well then, Cody, what car does Christopher Buescher drive?
He's in the 17 car.
Okay, good. If he actually wins this race, then he is going to cash the following bet for me as well. I'm taking the winning car number. I waffled on this one. I was trying to figure out which side I wanted to be on. I wanted to figure out if I wanted to take a number band or if I just wanted to go straight over under. And to me, the under 18.5 at minus 125 on Caesars was the way I ended up following or just coming down on. And look, I get it. I know that Christopher Bell is going to be, like we said, the heavy favorite in this one. We know that everybody's going to expect him to win, but Christopher Bell trying to win 3 races in a row, that's going to be very, very difficult. And then you got Joey Logano, but it's odd year Joey Logano. You got William Byron on the other side of that. And then kind of drops off for me at that point. I know Tyler Reddick is on this side of it, but I know you're going to talk about another guy on the other side of this as well, but there's really only 3 guys that I'm fearful of over this number that are going to end up winning. And if you're going to do that, you might as well just take their outrights and sort of cover yourself on that one. But the under 18.5, Jesus, it gives you Ross Chastain. It gives you Austin Cindric. It gives you Kyle Larson. It gives you, I guess, Brad Keselowski, if you're really thinking that RFK can get it done, but it gives you Kyle Busch. It gives you Chase Elliott. It gives you Denny Hamlin. It gives you Ryan Blaney. It gives you Chris Buescher. Like, that is a heavy, heavy hitting under the 18.5 there. And like I said, to me, only a few of those guys above this number actually scare me to the point where I would take the over. And, like I said, if you're going to do that, just take the outrights. But in the meantime, you can cover yourself with a huge array of possibilities and possible outcomes by taking this under 18.5. And it's not really even all that juiced. I mean, would I like it to be closer to 115? Sure. But the 125 for this just seems like a pretty decent price for what should be the winning group out of this.
Yeah, I really don't have any argument. I mean, a lot of the guys that I'm betting, 3 of the 4 I'm betting outright are underneath this number anyways. You get a loaded group of guys. Obviously, you're missing out on the Bells. You're missing out on the Byrons. Those are kind of the highlights, right? Reddick's tossed in there, some other guys. But, you just get so many guys under this. And you don't have to pick between Larson or Hamlin or Blaney, or you get them all wrapped up in one nice bucket. So, and I don't generally argue with you on car number bets. So I'm not going to start today.
Beautiful. All right. Well, then, speaking of the guys that you think are going to win this race, Cody, who do you have as the race winners?
Well, if you're going to continue to disrespect the greatest race car driver in the world currently, 8-1 for Kyle Larson on BetMGM. I don't know how you pass up a number like this. Bell is at 4-1. Blaney's at plus 550. I mean, these guys are just low numbers, and you're giving me Kyle Larson at 8-1. I cannot pass up on a number like that for Kyle Larson. Does his tire fall off sometimes? Do things go catastrophically for Larson sometimes? A lot of the time, yes. But when they don't, he's usually in the mix to win the race. He's usually up front. That's what I'm looking for at 8-1. And the Cup Series is so competitive right now. Picking straws between guys at 4-1, 5-1. You could pick one, sure, but I'm going to take the value where I find it. Larson at 8-1, I think, is just too big of a number. 3 top 5 finishes in the last 4 races here. So he's been in the mix. He's been close to winning. Top 10 in 10 of the last 12. He led 201 laps in the spring of 23 race a couple of seasons ago. 107 laps in a previous race just before that in the fall. In the 21 season when he won his championship. So he's had some really good runs here. Pretty good on short flats last year. 3rd at Martinsville, 4th at New Hampshire, 7th at Richmond, 2nd at the first Martinsville race, 3rd at the first Richmond race rather. At 8-1, just too good to pass up on Kyle Larson. 25-1. Give me John Green. Got to take Larson for the win. Shout out to John. I appreciate the backup there. 25-1. Give me Tyrone Gibbs. Is this the week he gets his first career victory? I think he certainly could. We've seen him win here in the Xfinity Series before. If you're listening on the audio version, Rod shaking his head currently. 3rd place finish last year. Led 57 laps. It's been a horrible first 3 weeks for Ty Gibbs. People are jumping off bridges about it and freaking out, and the sky is falling. The season hasn't even started. Take a break. Take a breath. His teammate is 4-1 to win this race, and he finished 3rd place last season. the numbers just don't add up. Obviously, Christopher Bell's the better driver currently, all this stuff, but Ty was right there in swinging distance, led 57 laps on the day. The number's too big. Give him to me. And then Austin Cindric, 50-1. I guess this is my year of taking guys who I think are going to break out. 50-1 for a Penske car. I'm calling my shot on Austin Cindric this week.
Cody standing at the plate. He's got his fingers outstretched toward the number 2 car. He's calling his shot, folks.
Okay, I got this Rusty Wallace quarter panel back here. Number 2 car. Let's go.
Beautiful. I love it. All right. Well, I'm turning mine to one of those guys that you said was too low, and I get it. But even still, plus 550 for Ryan Blaney. That's still not a bad number. I'm telling you right now, if you were to tell me that a guy that has finished second here as many times as Ryan Blaney is still at 5.5-1, I'm going to take that. 3 or 4 second place finishes on this track in 6 races. Like, what happens if you swing away at a tree enough times with an axe, right? That tree is about to come.
What if you didn't hit that? What if you didn't hit the tree any of those times, Rod?
And you'd be Ty Gibbs. I mean, well, no.
Or Ryan Blaney, because he hasn't won either. But
no, he's chopping away at the tree. He's chopping away. He's getting those second place finishes.
One more hit away from getting it. I got you.
One more hit away. Like, that's the thing. If you're spinning and you're spinning and you're spinning and you haven't won, right? Don't leave the slot machine, because then an old lady's going to drop a quarter in after you and she's going to win the whole jackpot. No, you got to stick it through until you win the whole damn thing. And that's what Ryan Blaney is about to do. I mean, we've already talked about him earlier in the show. A 4th place finish in 2022, a 2nd place finish in the fall, 2nd in the spring of 2023, 2nd in the fall of 2023, 5th place in 2024, 2nd place in 2022. When you look at the next gen speed rankings from iFantasy Race for Ryan Blaney, he is the first driver on the list with a 3.67. You look at the shorter, flatter tracks in 2024, Ryan Blaney, the 2nd fastest driver in total speed rankings on those tracks. It's just Ryan Blaney. You know, he was the 2nd in total green flag speed too. So this wasn't just a finish. He was fast all day long, 2nd only to Joey Logano in green flag speed in the Phoenix 1 race last year. And he's top 10. He's the first guy up there in average finishes for the next gen in Phoenix 2.8. I mean, like I said, you keep chopping away at a tree long enough, that tree is going to fall over. And I think still at plus 550, Ryan Blaney is a hell of a choice to win this race.
I was only kidding. I mean, any statistical way you look at this, Ryan Blaney fucking dominates all of it. Average finish, speed, all of it. He is by far the best driver here. And so I think that, to your point of picking him, and if you want to bet on Bell, I'm not telling you not to. If you want to bet on Blaney, I'm not telling you not to. Those guys should be really fucking good here. And I don't disagree with your Blaney pick at all. He has been just 6 for 6 inside the top 5. Like, you're going to have a shot if you bet on Ryan Blaney this week. So I do not hate the pick at all.
4 for 6 inside the top 2. Like, that's just, to me, that's
even more impressive.
Right? Like, yeah, you could, this is why I love stats. You can just twist them any way you want to make it the way you need to have it go. But, all right, time to get out your pen and paper. It is time to go over our bets for the Shriners Children's 500. And for those of you on the YouTube, time to get your screenshots ready as I prepare you with my picks for this. I started you out with Ty Gibbs and Chris Buescher, both inside of the top 10 at plus 260. I threw in Chevy over Toyota at the end of this race at minus 115 over on Caesars. I said, give me Kyle Busch over Brad Keselowski at minus 105 over on ESPN. I also said Ross Chastain would be a top 5 car at plus 190 over on FanDuel. I also tossed in and tugged a little heartstrings out there with Josh Berry as a top 5 car at plus 440 on FanDuel. And for those of you listening, you don't know that I didn't have this on there, but for those of you who aren't, Josh Berry is a top 10 car at plus 175. I also said the winning car would be under 18.5 at minus 125. I said Ryan Blaney at plus 550 would finally fell that tree and win this race. As for Cody, he gave you Chris Buescher over Brad Keselowski at minus 120. Also said that Chase Elliott would finish better than Denny Hamlin at minus 115. He gave you Ryan Blaney, the lock of all locks this week, top 5 at minus 110. He also gave you Austin Cindric as a top 10 car at plus 350. Tossed in the top Ford also at 22-1 and gave you a McDowell top 10. I know it's a little out of order, but that's just me kind of keeping you on your toes. Then he also gave you Tyrone Gibbs as the top Toyota at 10-1 and Riley Herbst as a top Toyota at 100-1. We're riding the Buescher car lift once more until it bucks us. Top 10 is going to be plus 140. Group C at plus 220 over Brad Keselowski, Josh Berry, and Ty Gibbs. Top 5 at 4-1, top 4 at 9-1, and then to win at 25-1. And then Cody said that Kyle Larson at 8-1, Ty Gibbs at 25-1, and Austin Cindric at 50-1 would be his race winners for the Shriners Children's 500. All right, Cody, that's Phoenix, buddy. We're killing it.
Yes, we are killing it. Had a great weekend last week. Hoping to replicate that this week. Had a good week in Xfinity last week as well, Rod. We'll be back to talk about that tomorrow. No trucks again this week, so it'll just be Xfinity all by itself. Alex Bowman is in the Xfinity field. Eric Almirola making his return. Of course, then you've got all of your regulars, the Ziliches, the Quapples, who both showed out last week. Xfinity field just so loaded this year. Gotta love it. Cannot wait.
Indeed, yeah. For the poor trucks, those guys, they get all revved up and then they got to take a couple of weeks off, and then it's like, well, sorry, trucks, you guys get nothing.
I think they're back next week, so
they are. That's fine. We'll enjoy watching them once more. All right, Cody. Well, then let's send everybody off to go fill out their betting cards, and in the meantime, where can they find you out in this wide world of ours?
Follow me over on the X at Husker_Zeeb. You can find all my stuff there. We do a lot of stuff on the show. We give out a lot of things. Constantly tweeting out more things, posting YouTube shorts. Make sure you subscribe over to YouTube. We've really stepped up our shorts game over there, whether it's clips from the show, whether it's other stuff we're doing, trying to get extra picks out there, extra underdog stuff, all of that. So hit the subscribe button over there so you don't miss anything. See you guys tomorrow for some Xfinity talk.
Yes, sir. Follow me on Twitter at RJ Villagomez. Link in the about everything I got going on, whether it's here, whether it's the back road. Make sure to check out Seth and Elliot on the In Between Media channel as they take you through the flat track of Phoenix this week. And we'll be back tomorrow, just like Cody said, with some Xfinity. So in the meantime, everybody, we love you all and we'll see you tomorrow. Until then, let's go racing and let it ride.